Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's all about knowing when to stay silent. In a world where everyone seems to have an opinion about everything, it's easy to forget that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is say nothing. Inspired by Stoic philosophy and the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, we're going to talk about the 10 situations where staying silent is actually the best thing you can do. We live in a time where social media encourages us to speak up, react instantly, and voice our thoughts all the time. But here's the thing, not every situation deserves a response. Silence can be a sign of strength, wisdom, and self-control. It's about knowing when to hold back, when to observe, and when to let your silence speak louder than words. In today's episode, we'll break down those 10 key moments when keeping quiet can actually bring you peace, clarity, and even power. If this sounds like something you need in your life, or if you're just curious about how Stoicism can help you deal with challenging situations, stick around. And if you find this episode helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on living a more intentional and balanced life. Now, let's get into it. 1. When you're angry, the power of calm silence. Anger, it's a feeling we all know too well. When something triggers you, your first instinct is probably to say something, to defend yourself, to argue back, or to let the other person know exactly how you feel. But here's the thing. When you speak out of anger, it's like trying to drive through a storm. You can't see clearly, you can't think straight, and you're way more likely to crash and make a mess of things. Why silence is powerful in anger. Think about the last time you got really angry. Did saying whatever came to mind actually help the situation, or did it make things worse? Most of the time when we react in anger, we say things we don't mean, we exaggerate, or we end up hurting someone we care about. And guess what? That moment of letting it all out feels good for about 5 seconds before we're left dealing with the consequences of what we said. This is where silence comes in. When you choose to stay silent in moments of anger, you give yourself space to cool down, to collect your thoughts, and to decide what you really want to say, if anything at all. Instead of letting your emotions control you, you're taking control over them. You're allowing the storm to pass so you can respond with clarity and wisdom. A Stoic perspective on anger. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, believed that anger is a weakness. It's a sign that we've allowed something external to take over our peace of mind, and they practiced something called apatheia, which is essentially the ability to remain calm and indifferent to things that would normally provoke an emotional reaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more damage anger and grief do than the things that cause them." In other words, the thing that makes you angry is probably not nearly as damaging as the anger itself. Let's say you're in a meeting and a colleague says something that feels like a direct attack on you or your work. Your face gets hot, your heart starts racing, and you're ready to fire back. But what if, instead, you took a deep breath and said nothing? That silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It gives you time to think. Is what they said really that big of a deal? Is it worth an argument? Often, when we allow ourselves to pause, we realize that our anger was more about our own insecurities or fears than it was about the actual comment. Practical steps to mastering silence in anger. So how can you practice silence when you're angry? Here's a simple technique. The next time you feel anger rising, try the 5-second rule. When you feel that urge to snap back, take a deep breath and count to 5 before you say anything. Use those 5 seconds to think about whether what you're about to say is helpful, necessary, and kind. If it's not all three, then staying silent is usually the best choice. Another tip is to physically remove yourself from the situation if you can. Go for a walk, step outside, or simply go to another room. Putting some physical distance between you and the thing that made you angry gives you a chance to cool down and get a better perspective. And remember, silence isn't the same as suppression. It doesn't mean you ignore your feelings or pretend they don't exist. It means you choose to respond to those feelings when you're in a calmer, more rational state of mind. You can always revisit the conversation later, once you've had time to process your emotions and think about what you want to say. Real-life example: staying silent to resolve conflict. Imagine you're having an argument with your partner. They say something hurtful, and you feel that urge to fire back with something even more hurtful, to win the argument. But what if instead you just paused? What if you chose to take a deep breath, let their words sit in the air for a moment, and then walked away to calm down? That silence creates space. It prevents the argument from escalating, and it gives both of you a chance to cool off. When you come back to the conversation later, you're more likely to approach it with empathy and understanding rather than defensiveness and anger. You're not letting the anger control you. You're using silence as a tool to control the situation. The power of reflection. The next time you feel anger bubbling up, remember that silence can be your greatest ally. It's not about bottling up your emotions or pretending you don't feel anything. It's about choosing to respond rather than react. It's about taking control over your words, your actions, and your peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence in moments of anger is that strength. It's the calm in the storm, the pause before the reaction, and the space you need to respond with wisdom and clarity. 2. When you don't have all the facts, the value of silence and listening. It's easy to jump into conversations with opinions, especially when the topic is heated or everyone around you seems to have strong views. But here's the thing: when you don't have all the facts, the best response is often silence. Choosing not to speak when you're unsure allows you to listen, learn, and make sure your words are meaningful when you do decide to share them. The power of silence in unfamiliar situations. Think about a time when you felt the urge to join a conversation about something you only knew a little about. It might be a news topic, a situation with friends, or even a new policy at work. It's tempting to contribute. After all, no one wants to seem uninformed. But speaking without understanding all sides can lead to misunderstandings or spreading misinformation. Imagine being at a family dinner where a controversial topic comes up. Instead of immediately chiming in, consider staying silent and really listening to everyone's perspectives. That silence is actually strength. It shows that you value understanding the full picture before forming an opinion. And when you do eventually share your thoughts, your words will carry more weight because they're based on a deeper understanding, not just a quick reaction. A Stoic approach: listening before speaking. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, believed that silence is a sign of wisdom and restraint. Aurelius once wrote, "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." In other words, speaking without understanding is more damaging than staying silent. Listening is an act of humility. It's recognizing that you don't know everything and are open to learning. By choosing silence when you're not sure, you practice sophrosin. a Stoic principle of self-control and moderation. You take the time to observe, absorb different viewpoints, and reflect before you speak. And that's powerful. Turning silence into curiosity. Staying silent doesn't mean staying disengaged. Use your silence to ask thoughtful questions and gather more context. When you don't have all the facts, try responses like, "Can you tell me more about that?" "I'm interested in your perspective. How did you come to that view?" By doing this, you're showing that you're not only listening, but that you're genuinely interested in understanding. This approach makes the conversation more meaningful, and it keeps you from making assumptions or jumping to conclusions too quickly. The risk of assuming and speaking out of turn. Jumping into discussions without all the details can lead to misunderstandings or worse, hurt feelings. Imagine a work meeting where you don't fully understand the details of a new project. If you speak without knowing the whole picture, you might come off as uninformed or even derail the conversation. But if you stay quiet, take notes, and ask questions to understand the topic better, you set yourself up to speak intelligently later on, when it matters most. Social media is another great example. How often do we see people arguing passionately about things they haven't fully researched? By staying silent until you're informed, you save yourself from embarrassment, misinformation, and unnecessary conflict. Silence builds trust and credibility. One of the best things about staying quiet when you're unsure is that it builds trust. When people see that you don't speak just for the sake of speaking, they're more likely to listen to you when you do decide to talk. Your words will carry more credibility because they're thoughtful and informed. By embracing silence when you're unsure, you give yourself the gift of learning. The next time you're in a situation where you don't have all the facts, remember, silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Use it to listen, learn, and make sure your words matter when you finally choose to speak. 3. When you're being provoked, the strength of not reacting. Provocation is something we all face. Maybe it's someone trying to get under your skin, a friend teasing you too harshly, or a stranger online leaving a rude comment. The world is full of situations where people want to push your buttons and get a reaction. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent and refuse to be pulled into the drama. Silence as a shield against provocation. When someone is trying to provoke you, their goal is to make you react. They want to get an emotional response, whether it's anger, defensiveness, or frustration. And when you give them that reaction, you're giving them control over your emotions and actions. But choosing silence is like holding up a shield. It protects you from letting their words penetrate your peace. Imagine you're at work and a colleague makes a snarky comment about your performance in front of others. You might feel the urge to snap back or defend yourself, but by staying silent, you take away their power. You're showing that their words don't define you, and you're not going to stoop to their level. It's like saying, "I hear you, but I don't have to respond to this negativity." The Stoic principle of control over your reactions. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is understanding what's within your control and what's not. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In situations of provocation, the only thing you can truly control is your response. And by staying silent, you're choosing not to let someone else dictate your mood, behavior, or thoughts. The Stoics believed that reacting impulsively was a sign of weakness, not strength. They practiced apatheia, a state of being emotionally unbothered by external events. When someone provokes you and you stay silent, you're practicing this Stoic virtue. You're showing that you won't let the chaos of the outside world disrupt your inner peace. Practical example: the power of the silent response. Think about a time when someone cut you off in traffic, or a customer service rep was rude to you on the phone. It's so easy to react, to honk your horn, yell, or argue back. But what does that reaction accomplish? It only escalates the situation and raises your stress levels. By staying silent, you maintain control over yourself and let the moment pass without turning it into a bigger issue. Or consider a conversation with a friend who makes a hurtful joke at your expense. It might sting, and your first instinct might be to clap back with an even harsher comment, but staying silent, letting the joke hang in the air, can actually make them realize that their words were inappropriate without you having to say a thing. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words and sends a clear message that certain behavior isn't acceptable. Practicing silence to de-escalate tension. One of the benefits of staying silent when provoked is that it can de-escalate a situation before it turns into a full-blown conflict. When you react, you add fuel to the fire, making the other person more likely to keep pushing your buttons. But when you remain calm and quiet, it diffuses their energy. They might realize they're not getting the reaction they wanted, and the situation often resolves itself without any argument at all. A great tip for practicing silence when provoked is to count to 10 before responding. This simple act of pausing gives you time to breathe, think, and decide if saying something is really necessary. More often than not, you'll find that staying silent is the wiser choice. Learning to walk away. Sometimes the best way to stay silent is to physically remove yourself from the situation. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you value your peace of mind over the need to win a confrontation. Whether it's leaving a room, stepping outside for fresh air, or simply turning off your phone to avoid a toxic conversation, walking away allows you to maintain your composure and focus on what really matters. Real-life example: social media drama. Social media is a prime example of where provocation thrives. People say things online that they might never say in person, and it's easy to get pulled into arguments or debates that go nowhere. When someone leaves a negative comment on your post or tries to start an argument in your DMs, it can be tempting to fire back with your own point of view. But ask yourself, is it really worth it? Will responding change their mind or just lead to more negativity? By choosing silence, you're choosing peace. You're saying, I won't waste my time or energy on something that doesn't bring value to my life. And that's powerful. Not every battle is worth fighting, and sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Conclusion: silence as a form of inner strength. Silence in the face of provocation isn't about letting people walk all over you. It's about recognizing that not every comment deserves a response, and not every argument is worth your time. It's about knowing that your peace of mind is more important than proving a point or getting the last word. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember that staying silent is a choice that gives you control over your emotions, your actions, and your well-being. Choose to rise above the noise and let your silence speak for itself. 4. When you're unsure of the truth, the wisdom in holding back. There's a saying that half the truth is often a great lie, When you're not sure about the full story or lack accurate information, staying silent can be the wisest move. Speaking up when you're unsure can lead to spreading misinformation, making assumptions, or causing unnecessary confusion. Sometimes the best thing you can do is hold your tongue until you know the truth. Why staying silent matters when facts are unclear. When we don't have all the information, it's easy to fill in the gaps with assumptions, guesses, or hearsay. Imagine being in a group conversation where someone is gossiping about a mutual friend. It's tempting to chime in, to share what you think you know, or add to the speculation. But what if what you say isn't accurate? What if, by speaking up, you're contributing to a misunderstanding or even hurting someone's reputation? In these moments, silence is a sign of respect, both for the truth and for those involved. By staying quiet until you have all the facts, you're showing that you value clarity over speculation and truth over drama. Stoic philosophy on speaking with integrity. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics placed a high value on speaking with integrity. They believed that words should only be spoken when they are truthful, necessary, and beneficial. Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In other words, silence is often better than speaking out of ignorance or incomplete knowledge. Being silent when you're unsure shows self-discipline and self-respect. It's about pausing before you speak, considering whether your words will contribute to a better understanding or simply add to the noise. Practicing this kind of discernment means that over time your words will carry more weight, because people will know that when you do speak, it's grounded in truth and thoughtfulness. Practical example: rumors and assumptions. Picture this. You hear a rumor at work that a big change is coming, a new policy, a leadership shakeup, or a potential layoff. You don't have all the details, but everyone around you is talking about it, sharing their fears and speculations. You might feel the pressure to join in, to share your thoughts, or agree with the opinions around you. But without knowing the full story, speaking up can only add to the anxiety and misinformation. By choosing silence, you're allowing yourself the chance to gather more information, to hear the official news when it comes out, and to approach the situation with a calm, informed mindset. When you do speak, your perspective will be rooted in fact, not rumor, and you'll be in a better position to support others or navigate the change. Listening for truth instead of assuming. One of the best ways to practice silence when you're unsure of the truth is to adopt a curious mindset. Instead of assuming you know what's going on, listen with the intent to understand. Ask clarifying questions, seek out reliable sources, and allow yourself the time to process the information before forming an opinion. For example, if you're in a discussion and someone shares a story or fact that you haven't heard before, instead of immediately agreeing, challenging, or adding your own thoughts, try saying something like, "That's interesting. Where did you hear that?" Or, "I'd like to learn more about that." These types of responses open the door to more accurate information without committing to a stance you might later regret. Online discussions and the dangers of misinformation. In the digital age, information spreads fast, and it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of online discussions, debates, and hot takes. But the speed of information doesn't always equal accuracy. Before jumping into a comment section to voice your opinion on a trending topic or retweeting a viral post, take a moment to check your sources. Are you sure that what you're about to say is true? Are you contributing to a conversation, or are you spreading something that might not be accurate? By practicing silence online, You're not only protecting yourself from the pitfalls of misinformation, you're also setting a standard for others to follow. In a world where everyone feels the need to speak up immediately, your silence can be a breath of fresh air, a sign that it's okay to pause, reflect, and seek truth before speaking. Real-life scenario: pausing before making a judgment. Let's say you're at a family gathering and a heated discussion breaks out about a political topic. You have some opinions based on what you've seen on the news, but you're not entirely sure about the facts. Instead of jumping in and potentially misrepresenting the issue, you choose to stay silent, listening to both sides and gathering more context. Later, when you've had a chance to research the topic, talk to others, and form a well-rounded perspective, you can return to the conversation with informed thoughts and a balanced viewpoint. Your silence wasn't avoidance. It was an intentional choice to make sure that your words aligned with the truth. Conclusion: silence as a pathway to truth. Choosing to stay silent when you're unsure isn't about being passive. It's about being wise. It's about recognizing that words have power, and using them carelessly can lead to misunderstandings, misinformation, and even conflict. By holding back until you know the full story, you're showing that you value truth, clarity, and integrity over being the loudest voice in the room. The next time you're in a situation where you don't have all the facts, remember that silence can be your greatest ally. It's the space you need to think, learn, and respond in a way that honors both yourself and the truth. 5. When someone else needs to speak, practicing patience and empathy. Conversations are a two-way street, but how often do we really make room for others to speak? In moments when someone is trying to share their feelings, experiences, or thoughts, staying silent can be one of the most powerful things you can do. It shows respect, empathy, and patience, and sometimes that silence is exactly what the other person needs. Why silence is important in listening. Let's face it, when we're in a conversation, it's easy to fall into the habit of thinking about what we're going to say next, rather than truly listening to the other person. But when you stay silent and focus on listening, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're fully present for the other person. It's about giving them your attention and the space to express themselves without interruption. Imagine your friend is going through a tough time. They're trying to open up to you about something deeply personal, a breakup, a loss, or a struggle they're facing. Your silence in that moment isn't empty, it's supportive. It shows that you're there to listen, not to judge, give advice, or make the conversation about you. Silence gives them the chance to fully express what they're feeling, and that in itself can be incredibly healing. The Stoic principle of active listening. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of being present, patient, and understanding. Marcus Aurelius and other Stoic thinkers believed in active listening, the practice of fully engaging with the speaker and giving them your undivided attention. One of Aurelius's most famous quotes is, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." The Stoics knew that the greatest gift you can give someone is your time and attention. By staying silent and listening, you practice humility. You're putting the other person's need to be heard above your own desire to speak. And in doing so, you strengthen your relationship with them, show empathy, and build trust. Silence becomes a tool for deeper connection and understanding. Silence as a way to validate someone's experience. One of the most powerful things you can do for someone is to validate their feelings. And sometimes the best way to do that isn't through words, but through silence. When someone shares something difficult or vulnerable, we often rush to comfort them with phrases like, "It'll be okay," or "I know how you feel." While well-intentioned, these responses can sometimes feel dismissive or can shift the focus back to ourselves. But silence says, "I'm here for you. I hear you. Your feelings are valid." It allows the person to fully express what they're going through without feeling like they need to minimize their experience or match your perspective. It's a simple but profound way to show that you care. An example of silence strengthening a relationship. Think about a situation where a family member or partner comes to you visibly upset. They start to pour out their frustrations, their hurt, and their fears. Your instinct might be to jump in with solutions or to share your own similar experience. But by choosing silence, by simply nodding, maintaining eye contact, and letting them talk, you're giving them a safe space to be vulnerable. After they finish speaking, that silence allows the moment to sink in. It creates a pause where they know they've been heard. And when you do speak, your words will come from a place of empathy and understanding, rather than an attempt to fix things right away. This type of silence can deepen bonds, improve communication, and show that you value their voice. Silence isn't always comfortable, and that's okay. It's normal to feel a little uncomfortable with silence, especially when someone is sharing something heavy or emotional. But that discomfort is often a sign that the silence is doing its job. It's creating a space where real, meaningful communication can happen. And often, that's exactly what the person needs. A quiet space to let out what they're feeling without interruption. If you find yourself struggling to stay silent when someone is talking, try to focus on active listening techniques. Eye contact. Show that you're engaged and present. Nodding or simple affirmations. A gentle nod or a quiet "I understand" can encourage them to continue without interrupting. Body language. Lean in slightly, relax your posture, and make sure your phone or other distractions are out of the way. These small actions make your silence feel warm and supportive, rather than detached or disinterested. Silence as a gift of patience and presence. One of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your presence, being fully there for them in a conversation without distractions or the need to make it about yourself. When you're silent, you're not just letting the other person talk, you're giving them your full attention, your empathy, and your understanding. And in a world where everyone is so quick to speak, that kind of silence is rare and deeply valuable. Real-life scenario: supporting a friend in need. Let's say your friend is going through a breakup and comes to you for support. They start crying, venting, and sharing all the confusing emotions they're experiencing. Your silence in this moment can be incredibly powerful. By not interrupting or offering quick solutions, you're letting them know that it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to be upset, and they don't have to hold back. And when they're ready, they'll appreciate the fact that you were there for them, not to fix things, but to listen. Conclusion: silence as a way to show love and respect. Staying silent when someone else needs to speak is an act of love, patience, and respect. It's about putting the needs of the other person first, allowing them to share their story, and being present for them in a way that words alone often can't accomplish. The next time you find yourself in a conversation where someone is opening up, remember that silence can be the most supportive response. Listen with empathy, be present, and let your silence speak louder than any advice or quick fix ever could. 6. When gossip is the topic, the power of not engaging. We've all been there. Gossip. It's like a wildfire that spreads quickly, whether it's in a friend group, at the office, or even among family members. The moment someone starts sharing juicy details about someone else's life, it can be tempting to join in, to share your thoughts, or to react to the drama. But the Stoic approach to gossip is simple: silence. Not engaging is one of the best ways to protect your own peace and maintain respect for others. Why staying silent is the smart move. When you're in a situation where gossip is the main topic, staying silent has a couple of major benefits. First, it keeps you from saying something you might regret later. Gossip tends to bring out our worst sides: judgment, assumptions, and negativity. By staying quiet, you avoid contributing to a conversation that can hurt others or damage your relationships. Second, staying silent allows you to maintain a level of integrity. Think about it. Do you really want to be known as someone who spreads rumors or talks behind people's backs? By choosing silence, you're making a statement. I don't participate in conversations that tear others down. And over time, people will respect you more for being someone who doesn't indulge in drama. A Stoic perspective on gossip. The Stoics were very clear about their stance on gossip. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." This means that instead of focusing on others' mistakes or flaws, we should look inward and work on our own growth. Gossip pulls our attention away from self-improvement and encourages us to judge others, which goes against the Stoic practice of humility and self-reflection. Stoic philosophy teaches that we have power over our own actions and choices, not over the lives of others. So, when you're faced with gossip, the best response is to simply not engage. Stay silent and let the conversation move on without your input. Practical example: when gossip comes up at work. Let's say you're at work and some colleagues are talking about a coworker who recently made a mistake or had a falling out with the boss. It's the topic of the day, and everyone seems to have something to say about it. You might feel pressure to join in, to add your perspective, or to react to what others are saying. But what if you stayed silent? By not participating, you're showing that you're focused on your work and not interested in spreading rumors or creating divisions among the team. And when the gossip dies down, as it eventually does, you'll come out with your reputation intact, having avoided saying anything that could come back to haunt you later. How to practice silence in a gossip-filled environment. It's not always easy to stay silent when gossip is all around you. People might even ask for your opinion directly, making it awkward to stay out of the conversation. In these moments, practice redirection. If someone asks what you think about a particular rumor or piece of drama, try saying something neutral like, "I'm not sure, it's hard to know the full story." "I don't really have an opinion on that." "I hope everything works out for them." These responses don't fuel the gossip, they deflect it, and over time, people will learn that you're not the kind of person who engages in those conversations. Another way to practice silence is to physically remove yourself from the situation. If you're in a group setting and the topic turns to gossip, it's okay to excuse yourself, get back to work, or simply shift the topic to something more positive. Sometimes your silence can be a cue for others to stop as well. The consequences of engaging in gossip. Engaging in gossip might feel satisfying in the moment, but it comes with consequences. It damages trust, both with the person you're talking about and with those who are listening. After all, if you're willing to gossip about someone else, what's stopping you from gossiping about the person you're talking to? People pick up on that energy, and it can lead to distrust and strained relationships. Additionally, gossip distracts from what really matters. It wastes time and mental energy on things that are outside of your control, pulling focus away from your goals, values, and growth. And when you get caught up in gossip, it's easy to lose sight of what's important, letting negativity and judgment cloud your perspective. Real-life scenario: changing the conversation. Imagine you're at a social gathering and a group of friends starts talking about someone who isn't there, a friend who's been struggling or going through a tough time. The conversation starts to turn critical, with people making judgments or assumptions about that person's choices. In that moment, you have a choice: stay silent or contribute to the negativity. By choosing to stay silent, or even gently redirecting the conversation to a more supportive topic, you're showing compassion for the person who's being talked about. You're refusing to be part of a conversation that might hurt them if they knew what was being said. And that's powerful, because it takes courage to choose silence in the face of gossip. Conclusion: silence as a form of respect and integrity. Choosing to stay silent when gossip is the topic isn't just about avoiding drama. It's about choosing respect. It's about valuing honesty, compassion, and the relationships you have with others. Your silence says, "I won't tear others down just to fill a moment of conversation." So the next time you find yourself in a situation where gossip is circulating, remember the power of silence. Not only does it protect your integrity, but it also sets an example for others to follow. Let your silence be a statement of your commitment to kindness, understanding, and peace. 7. When you're unsure about the other person's intentions, avoiding misunderstandings. Sometimes in conversations, you might not be entirely sure where the other person is coming from. Maybe they say something that sounds like criticism, or they ask a question that feels loaded with hidden meaning. When you're unsure about someone's intentions, your first instinct might be to jump in and defend yourself, ask for clarification, or even confront them directly. But there's power in staying silent and observing before you make any assumptions. The benefits of silence in unclear situations. If you respond too quickly in these moments, you risk misunderstanding the other person's true meaning. You might misinterpret their words, assume malice when none was intended, or escalate a situation that didn't need to become tense. But if you stay silent, even for just a moment, you create a space to observe both what's being said and how it's being said. Let's say you're in a meeting and a colleague makes a comment that seems to undermine your work. Your instinct might be to react defensively, to explain yourself, or to confront them about their tone. But if you pause, take a breath, and stay silent for a moment, you give yourself time to really think. Was that comment truly meant as a criticism, or am I reading too much into it? Oftentimes, that silence allows you to gain perspective and respond in a more thoughtful way, or sometimes to let it go entirely. Stoic perspective: observing before reacting. The Stoics taught the importance of remaining calm and collected, especially in situations where the intentions of others are unclear. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in one's own self-deception and ignorance." This quote emphasizes humility and patience. It's about seeking to understand the situation clearly before reacting. By staying silent, you're practicing restraint and self-control, Two key Stoic virtues. You're allowing yourself to gather more information before forming a judgment, and in doing so, you're protecting your peace of mind and avoiding unnecessary conflict. Learning to read between the lines. Silence gives you the chance to read between the lines. When you're quiet, you can pay more attention to non-verbal cues, the other person's body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. These cues often provide more context than the words themselves. For example, a friend might say something sarcastic, but if you look closely, you might see that they're smiling playfully, indicating that they're joking and not trying to be hurtful. Or maybe someone seems upset when they speak to you, and your first instinct is to take it personally. But if you stay silent and observe, you might realize that their frustration isn't directed at you at all. It's coming from something else going on in their life. By not reacting immediately, you're allowing room for empathy and understanding, rather than jumping to conclusions. The wait and see approach. One of the best ways to stay silent when you're unsure of someone's intentions is to take a wait-and-see approach. Instead of responding right away, try pausing and saying something neutral like, "I'll need to think about that," or "Let me get back to you on that." This gives you time to process the conversation without feeling pressured to react in the moment. For example, if someone asks you a question that feels loaded or makes a comment that feels off, you don't have to respond immediately. Letting a little bit of silence hang in the air can do wonders. It shows that you're thoughtful and that you're not going to be pulled into reacting impulsively. And sometimes that pause is enough for the other person to clarify their intentions without you even having to ask. Avoiding misunderstandings and preserving relationships. Misunderstandings often happen when we jump to conclusions about someone's intentions without taking the time to fully understand their perspective. And those misunderstandings can lead to conflict, resentment, and damaged relationships. By staying silent in moments of uncertainty, you're choosing to give the benefit of the doubt, to approach the conversation with an open mind, and to allow for clarification before making assumptions. Think about a time when you assumed the worst about what someone said, only to later find out that they meant something completely different. Maybe you felt embarrassed about your reaction or wished you could take your words back. Practicing silence in these situations prevents that kind of regret. It gives you the space to reflect and make sure that when you do respond, it's from a place of understanding, not assumption. A real-life scenario: diffusing tension in conversations. Imagine you're having a conversation with a family member and they make a comment that feels like a dig at you, maybe about your life choices, career, or relationships. Your immediate reaction might be to argue back, to defend yourself, or to call them out on what they said. But what if, instead, you chose to stay silent for a moment? What if you let that comment sit in the air, took a breath, and gave them the chance to explain? Oftentimes, your silence will prompt them to clarify what they meant or to soften their tone. And if their intention was to provoke, your silence shows that you're not going to take the bait. It's a way of saying, "I'm not going to let your words disrupt my peace." This approach often diffuses tension and allows for a more calm, meaningful discussion later on. Conclusion: silence as a tool for clarity and understanding. Staying silent when you're unsure of someone's intentions isn't about avoiding difficult conversations. It's about approaching those conversations with wisdom, patience, and openness. By taking a moment to pause, observe, and reflect, you create space for understanding and avoid the pitfalls of jumping to conclusions or reacting emotionally. The next time you find yourself in a conversation where the other person's intentions are unclear, remember the power of silence. Use it to read between the lines, to gather more context, and to respond in a way that promotes clarity and strengthens your relationships. 8. When it's not your place to speak. Respecting boundaries. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves in situations where we may have an opinion or some insight, but deep down, we know it's not our place to speak up. Maybe it's a conversation that doesn't concern us, a private matter between others, or a decision that someone else is responsible for making. In these moments, staying silent can be a powerful way to show respect, honor boundaries, and allow others to take ownership of their lives. Respecting the space and privacy of others. When you decide not to speak in situations that don't directly involve you, you're showing respect for the space and privacy of others. You're acknowledging that not every conversation needs your input, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is simply step back and let others handle their own issues. It's about understanding that your presence doesn't always require your voice. Imagine you're with a group of friends, and two of them start having a serious private conversation about their relationship. You might feel tempted to jump in with advice, share your own experiences, or take sides, but doing so can cross a boundary and make the situation more complicated than it needs to be. By staying silent, you're allowing them to communicate openly with each other, without adding pressure or unnecessary opinions. The Stoic perspective on knowing your role. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control and to recognize our role in any given situation. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, often emphasized the importance of knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." This means living purposefully and with restraint, knowing that sometimes silence is the wisest course of action, particularly when the matter at hand isn't yours to address. When you stay silent in situations that don't concern you, you're practicing humility. You're choosing not to make everything about yourself, and you're allowing others to work through their own challenges, decisions, and conversations without your interference. This kind of silence fosters respect and strengthens relationships because it shows that you trust others to handle their lives. Recognizing when it's time to step back. One of the keys to knowing when to stay silent is to recognize the context of the situation. Ask yourself, does this directly involve me? Am I being asked for my input, or am I offering it unsolicited? Will my words add value, or could they potentially create conflict or discomfort? If the answer to any of these questions indicates that your words might not be necessary or helpful, then it's probably best to stay silent. For example, if a co-worker is talking with your boss about a personal issue and you happen to overhear, it's not your place to offer advice or ask questions about their situation. Your silence shows that you respect their privacy and that you're not going to intrude on a conversation that isn't yours to navigate. The difference between silence and indifference. It's important to distinguish between staying silent to respect boundaries and staying silent out of indifference. The former is a conscious choice to allow others their space. The latter is a disregard for what's happening around you. When you stay silent, because it's not your place to speak, you're still showing care and respect for the people involved. You're simply choosing to let them take the lead. For instance, if a family member is struggling with a decision and hasn't asked for your opinion, it's respectful to stay silent and let them come to you if they want to talk. That doesn't mean you don't care about what they're going through. It means you trust them to handle it on their own terms. And if they do seek your advice later, your silence in the earlier stages will make them more likely to value what you have to say. A real-life example: friendships and boundaries. Let's say you have a close friend who's in the middle of a difficult breakup. They're talking to their ex and working through the emotions of ending the relationship. You might feel tempted to jump in, to tell your friend what they should or shouldn't say, or to criticize their ex. But sometimes offering unsolicited advice can add stress to an already complicated situation. By staying silent and letting your friend take the lead, you're showing that you trust their judgment and that you're there to support them, not to take control of their decisions. If they want your input, they'll ask for it. And when they do, your response will come from a place of respect and understanding, because you gave them the space they needed to navigate their situation. Silence as a form of support. Staying silent when it's not your place to speak doesn't mean you're being passive or unsupportive. It means you're respecting the boundaries of others and allowing them the freedom to handle their own lives. It's about understanding that sometimes people need to process their experiences on their own, and that your silence can be a sign of respect, trust, and empathy. In professional settings, for example, your silence might mean respecting a decision that your boss or team leader is responsible for making. In friendships, it might mean letting your friend work through a tough decision without feeling pressured by your opinions. And in family matters, it might mean listening without judgment when loved ones are going through something personal. Conclusion: silence as a respect for others' journeys. Choosing silence when it's not your place to speak is a way of showing that you honor the boundaries of those around you. It's about recognizing that not every situation requires your input, and that allowing others to lead their conversations, decisions, and experiences is a sign of respect. The next time you find yourself in a situation where you're unsure if you should speak up, remember that silence can be an act of support, humility, and understanding. It's a way to honor the space and privacy of others while maintaining your own sense of integrity and self-control. 9. When it's a situation. You don't want to fuel letting silence diffuse the tension. There are moments in life where you're faced with negativity, arguments, complaints, drama, and it's easy to get pulled in. Whether it's a heated debate, a friend venting about someone else, or an online discussion spiraling out of control, you might feel that pull to jump in, defend your stance, or prove a point. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent and let the situation diffuse on its own. Using silence as a way to de-escalate. When a conversation starts to become negative, tense, or filled with drama, adding your voice to it can often make things worse. Even if your intentions are good, responding to someone who's already upset can escalate emotions and fuel the tension. But by choosing silence, you're allowing the situation to settle naturally without adding more energy to it. Let's say someone criticizes you openly or tries to start an argument with you. It could be a friend who calls you out in front of others, a colleague who challenges your work, or even a stranger who confronts you online. Your instinct might be to defend yourself, to explain your side of the story, or to fight back. But in doing so, you're giving them exactly what they want: a reaction. By staying silent, you're taking control over your own emotions and refusing to engage in a battle that doesn't serve you. You're letting their words pass by, and in doing so, you often leave them without the ammunition they were looking for. Silence in these situations can be like pouring water on a flame. It extinguishes the spark before it can become a full-blown fire. The Stoic practice of letting go of what doesn't serve you. The Stoics were all about recognizing what was within their control and letting go of what wasn't. They believed that we should focus on what we can change, our thoughts, actions, and responses, and let go of things that are outside our power, like other people's opinions, words, or actions. Marcus Aurelius famously said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This teaches us that just because we have the opportunity to speak doesn't mean we should take it. In situations of conflict or negativity, silence is a way of practicing detachment. It's about realizing that not every fight is worth fighting, not every comment deserves a response, and not every argument requires your participation. Silence allows you to protect your peace and maintain control over how you react to the world around you. Choosing when to engage and when to walk away. Knowing when to stay silent is all about discernment. It's about choosing which battles are worth your energy and which aren't. For example, if you're in a conversation where emotions are running high and it's clear that no one is willing to listen, staying silent can be a way to disengage respectfully. By choosing silence, you're signaling that you're not willing to add to the drama, but you're also not closing the door on future, more constructive conversations. If you're not sure whether to speak or stay silent, ask yourself, will my words bring value or clarity to the situation? Am I speaking to resolve the issue, or am I speaking out of pride, anger, or frustration? What will happen if I say nothing? Will the situation get worse, or will it calm down? If your words aren't going to contribute positively, or if the situation is likely to resolve itself without your input, then silence is often the best choice. An example of silence diffusing tension. Imagine you're at a family gathering and a heated political discussion breaks out. Emotions are high, voices are raised, and it's clear that no one is really listening to understand. They're listening to argue. You have strong opinions about the topic, but you know that jumping into the conversation won't lead to anything productive. So instead of engaging, you choose to stay silent, focus on enjoying the moment, and let the conversation play out without your involvement. Your silence sends a message. You're not interested in conflict or tension. And often when one person refuses to engage in the drama, others start to follow suit. The conversation naturally calms down, or people move on to other, less divisive topics. Your silence becomes a tool for preserving peace and avoiding unnecessary conflict. The value of stepping back from online debates. Silence can also be especially powerful in the digital world. Think about how quickly online discussions can spiral into arguments. Someone makes a post, another person disagrees, and before long, comment sections are filled with negativity and anger. It's easy to get pulled into these debates, to feel like you need to prove your point or defend your stance. But the truth is, most online arguments don't lead to resolution. They lead to more division and frustration. By choosing silence online, you're choosing not to let social media dictate your mood or steal your peace. You're saying, I don't need to participate in this argument to feel validated. And when you step back from online debates, you free up time and energy to focus on things that truly matter. Real-life scenario: choosing silence in workplace conflicts. Let's say a coworker criticizes you in a meeting or tries to take credit for your work. It can be tempting to confront them on the spot, to prove that you're right, or to call them out in front of everyone. But doing so can escalate the conflict and make things uncomfortable for you and everyone else in the room. By staying silent in the moment, you allow yourself time to think. You can decide whether it's best to address the issue privately later on, or to let it go entirely. Your silence in the moment shows that you're calm, collected, and not easily provoked. And when you do choose to address the situation, it will be from a place of clarity and intention, not from a place of anger or embarrassment. Conclusion: silence as a pathway to peace. Choosing silence when faced with negativity, drama, or conflict isn't about avoiding the issue. It's about choosing your battles wisely. It's about understanding that not every situation deserves your energy, and that sometimes the best response is no response at all. The next time you find yourself in a situation that feels tense, chaotic, or emotionally charged, remember that silence can be your greatest tool. Use it to protect your peace, to let emotions settle, and to ensure that when you do speak, your words are grounded in wisdom and calm. 10. When the conversation won't change the outcome, saving energy and time. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a discussion where you realize, partway through, that nothing you say is going to change the outcome? Maybe it's a debate with someone who's set in their ways, a disagreement that's been going in circles, or a conversation that's just not going anywhere productive. In these situations, knowing when to stay silent can be a superpower. It's about saving your energy, your time, and your peace of mind. Recognizing the point of diminishing returns in conversations. It's great to have meaningful discussions, especially when they lead to deeper understanding or resolution. But sometimes, a conversation reaches a point where further discussion won't add any value. It's just going to drain your energy. This could happen in arguments about politics, personal values, or even small disagreements that keep looping back to the same points. Imagine you're having a heated discussion with a friend who has a very different viewpoint than yours. You're going back and forth, making your points, and it quickly becomes clear that neither of you is budging. At this point, what do? You could keep arguing, trying to convince them that you're right, but often all that does is build frustration on both sides. Or you could choose to go silent, acknowledging that the conversation has reached its peak and it's time to let go. The Stoic principle of conserving mental energy. One of the key teachings of Stoicism is mental clarity and peace. The Stoics understood that we only have a limited amount of energy each day, and it's important to use that energy wisely. They believed in focusing on what they could control, like their own thoughts and actions, and not wasting energy on things outside of their control, like other people's opinions. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This quote highlights the importance of action over endless debate. Instead of arguing about what the right thing is, focus on living your truth and being the example. Silence in this context is a choice to prioritize your mental peace over the need to prove a point. Practical example: knowing when to end the debate. Let's say you're at a family gathering and a discussion about politics or religion starts heating up. You might have strong beliefs, and so might your family members. But you also know that these debates rarely end with anyone changing their mind. They usually just end with heightened emotions and frayed relationships. By choosing to stay silent or to step away from the conversation, you're making a conscious decision to preserve your peace and enjoy the rest of the gathering. It doesn't mean you don't care about your beliefs or that you're conceding the argument. It simply means you're choosing to prioritize your well-being and your relationship with the other person over a conversation that isn't going to have a positive outcome. Silence as a form of acceptance and maturity. Sometimes staying silent is about accepting that not every conversation needs a winner. It's about maturity, recognizing that you don't always have to have the last word or prove your point to feel validated. It's about understanding that your self-worth isn't determined by whether or not someone agrees with you. For example, you're at work and a coworker disagrees with your approach to a project. You know that arguing won't change the way they think, and in the end, the project will move forward in the direction that the boss has decided anyway. In this case, staying silent and focusing on doing your best work, regardless of the disagreement, is more effective than spending time and energy on a debate that won't change the outcome. Deciding what conversations are worth your time. Silence in these situations is an intentional choice to use your time wisely. Life is full of decisions about how to spend your limited energy, and not every conversation is worth your time. Ask yourself, will this conversation lead to a productive outcome? Am I trying to resolve an issue, or am I arguing for the sake of it? Is this conversation bringing value to my life, or is it causing unnecessary stress? If the answer is no, then silence is often the most powerful choice you can make. It's a way of showing that you value your peace of mind and well-being over the need to be right or to keep talking just for the sake of it. Real-life scenario: disagreements with loved ones. Imagine you and your partner are having a disagreement about something small: where to go for dinner, how to spend the weekend, or whose turn it is to do the dishes. The conversation starts to get a little heated, and you realize that arguing about it further isn't going to solve anything. It's just going to make both of you frustrated. In that moment, choosing silence can be a way to reset, to give both of you space to breathe, and to let go of the need to win the argument. By staying silent, you're showing that you care more about the relationship than about being right. And often, after a bit of silence, both you and your partner might realize that the disagreement wasn't really worth arguing about in the first place. Silence as a pathway to self-reflection. Another benefit of choosing silence in situations where the outcome won't change is that it gives you a chance to reflect. Instead of focusing on what the other person is saying, you can turn inward and ask yourself why the conversation is so important to you. Are you speaking out of pride? Are you trying to prove something to yourself or someone else? Sometimes that silence allows you to recognize your own motives and decide whether they're worth pursuing. Conclusion: choosing silence as a way to protect your energy. When you find yourself in a conversation that feels like a dead end, where you know that no matter what is said, the outcome won't change, silence can be your best friend. It's about protecting your energy, maintaining your peace, and choosing to walk away from discussions that don't serve your well-being. So the next time you're in a conversation that feels endless, circular, or just plain unproductive, remember that staying silent isn't a sign of defeat. It's a sign of wisdom. It's a way of saying, I value my peace over the need to argue. Let your silence be a pathway to greater clarity, calm, and control over your life. And there you have it, 10 powerful situations where silence truly is golden. From moments of anger to times when you're unsure of someone else's intentions, silence isn't about avoiding your voice. It's about using it wisely. In a world that's constantly pushing us to react, respond, and voice every thought. Learning when to stay silent can be one of the most empowering skills you develop. It gives you control over your emotions, protects your peace of mind, and strengthens your relationships. Remember, silence is not weakness. It's a choice. It's choosing your battles, your words, and your reactions carefully. And often, it's choosing peace over the need to be right or to be heard. Whether you're navigating tricky social situations, tense family dynamics, or just working on your own emotional growth, practicing intentional silence can make all the difference. I hope this episode helped shed light on how silence can be a tool for inner strength, wisdom, and emotional balance. And if you found these tips useful, please consider hitting that like button to support the channel. If you know someone who might benefit from learning about the power of silence, feel free to share this episode with them as well. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content about self-improvement, Stoic philosophy, and living a more balanced life. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that chooses to stay silent. Until next time, take care and stay strong.